Welcome into the Backroads Bill podcast. I'm Ben, and on today's episode, we do not have a guest on. But the reason for that is because it is officially fall. We are officially in a fall season, into the pumpkin spice, Halloween, the beautiful fall colors, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Bill is going to take us around all of Northern Ontario to see what are the best places that you can visit to really get that good aesthetic of fall. We talk about it. I go through a bit of a lesson on trees, which takes me back to probably grade 5 or 6. So Bill kind of schools me a little bit on that. But we just want to take you around to some of the best autumn destinations that you can see. We also talk about Bill's winter prediction and how much faith he puts into that groundhog that you see, of course, every spring. But he's going to tell us if he thinks it's an early winter, if it's in late winter, how he thinks this winter is going to go. And, of course, here at the Backroads Bill podcast, we recently just hit a big milestone. So we wanted to take some time to acknowledge that. And it's just been a really fun ride so far. And so we just want to celebrate a bit of the successes. So we have a lot of stuff to cover today, which we'll do right after a word from today's sponsor. Founded in 1968, Voyager Aviation is a proud member of our community, providing worldwide aviation services from our headquarters right here in North Bay. If you're looking for a challenge, change, or want to expand your current career in aviation, Voyager is hiring for a wide range of technical and non-technical roles, including pilots, aircraft maintenance personnel, corporate administration, machinists, supply chain professionals, and more. Be part of a workforce that is over 400 strong, supporting humanitarian, government, defense, and civil aviation operations around the world. For a career in aviation and beyond, learn more about open positions and career paths at voyav.com. Well, Bill, one of the things that we missed, because we had Corey Dingle on the last 2 weeks, because that was a long conversation, a great conversation, but long, was we kind of bypassed our 1-year anniversary. So happy anniversary, Bill.
Wow, it's hard to believe that I've been with you for a year, Ben. It's going to be a long-standing relationship, or let's hope it will be one. But yes, we had that. We're talking about colors today in a different way, but we talked about the Morrisseau frauds, and I know that's a 2-part episode that people should tune into to the Backroads Bill podcast. But yes, it's hard to believe we've done 52 of them, and such a diverse number of topics and people we've had on, like Wab Rice, Adam Schultz, Hap Wilson, and on and on it goes. People locally, internationally, nationally. And we, again, the national, international topic like Norval Morrisseau and the like. So covered a lot of topics, but most of them have those themes on the back roads in Northern Ontario. And so I'm glad we're doing it. And I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, it's been very fun. And we've been doing this before. I think we started last April or March, right around when we actually started, when I got hired in February of 2023, if I have my years right, which I think I do. We started almost right away, and then we did a whole bunch that we kind of saved up, and we've released some of them as we go. I think there might still be some in the can.
Here I am choking on some water, but just everything you said makes me choke up anyway.
Yeah, I know it's been a fun year for sure, and I'm looking forward because we have a lot of cool guests coming up in the future.
Lined up.
One of them that we're hopefully going to get in the next couple weeks is a gentleman named Gerald. Gerald. And he did something for you, Bill, that we've mentioned before. Now, we've had a couple of Sasquatch-themed episodes, but he did something that's really cool, and the Ecology Center now has a new friend that's going to be there permanently.
Yeah, Sasquatch Sam is at the Canadian Ecology Center and Sammy de Champlain Provincial Park. It's now its new home. It's more than 8 feet tall, and Gerald Gunkel, the sculptor, put all that to created that. And lo and behold, it's there because we have had Sasquatch episodes. We also had the chief of police from Sioux Lookout, the Indigenous, Ken, talk about that, and we'll talk with Gerald about another Sasquatch, and it's got its home now. Sabi has its home, and it's going to be a whole new environmental education program for the Canadian Ecology Center. It's not so much about believing or disbelieving, because I know you believe anyway that it's about that Sasquatch and animals, thrive and survive in special places, green spaces, and we should kind of relate that image of the Sasquatch to nature and the places we love to go on the back roads.
Yeah, it's very interesting too because we talked about Horn and Payne before and how it's kind of, I think you said they should have a Sasquatch something there.
They should be the center. They are the geographic center of Ontario, and we've talked about that. And they could become the Sasquatch capital of Northern Ontario. But lo and behold, Sasquatch Sand now lives in Samuel D. Champlain Provincial Park and the Canadian Ecology Center. So bragging rights.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool. What's funny is I've had this conversation with you off air, but my sister and brother-in-law got married at the ecology. Well, yeah, kind of at the ecology center where they did the reception. So yeah. I haven't actually been out there since then. So that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I need to go, and I got to see this. Well,
funny you say that. From here on in already, that's a whole story which we'll talk about with Gerald about getting it from Southampton on Lake Huron and 4.5 hours, 450 kilometers later back to the park in place, and the whole journey of all the people that took selfies and called out with it was because it was standing vertically on a trailer, didn't have it covered up like a statue, so to speak. That was pretty neat. But already on the first day, we had a private school from Toronto that took 112 students. They had got their class picture with it. And then, of course, I've made the call out, the shout out to come and see Sasquatch Sand and leave a rock.
Why a rock?
Oh, well, it's kind of a Hebrew tradition. When someone dies, it's like leaving a gift, but there's energy in the rocks and things. And that's already started to happen, and people have started to take pictures and sending them to us with regards to having their picture taken with Sasquatch. Anyway, kind of a neat thing that we did, and I think it's going to pay off dividends.
Yeah, I saw the pictures on Facebook, and when were you driving the car that the trailer was on?
I was shotgun, and Court Vincent, our maintenance person at the Canadian Ecology Center, did most of the driving. And there was a great deal of anxiousness because, again, here's a 1,500-pound statue on the back of a flatbed. And, of course, we had it, all our wisdom with ratchet straps and ropes and all kinds of things and making sure that thing would stay vertically all the way back. But, again, we're going to cover that off on an upcoming episode. So it's new and it's very colorful. Maybe that's a lead into what we're going to talk about today, the fall colors.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to look on. And I can't wait for this episode too, because I need to know, how did you guys get it even on your trailer? All of the specifics, but when we have Gerald on, it's going to be fantastic. Hopefully that'll be in the coming weeks.
Ben, it was just magic. It's always just magic. It's just like the magic that's occurring outside there in the forest right now.
Mm-hmm. So today's theme is all about colors. It's all about now that we're in fall, it's back to school. I guess if you're in the working class, nothing really changes. That was the weirdest thing when I got out of school. Was the first year I was out of college, and that was the first year I wasn't actually enrolled in school. When September came around, it was so strange not to go to school.
Well, timing-wise, late September is all about change, and that's what happens with the trees and the leaves and everything else. And for timing for this episode, fall starts this weekend, so it's kind of timely we're doing this episode because it'll probably be released a week or two after the fact. So yeah, it's all about the change in nature, and we're going to look at places all over Northern Ontario, not just the North Bay area, all over Northeastern Ontario in particular, where you should go for those Sunday drives, or if you're taking, a lot of people, retirees certainly take fall vacations and camping, because we've had this spate of weather, and it's just like everyone should be camping right now because there's no bugs.
My favorite time of year is fall. Because here's the thing. I don't like hot weather. So when it's summer and it's 30 degrees out, I get sweaty. I don't like it. In the wintertime, I like the coziness of winter in like November, December. As soon as the new year comes in, I don't like it anymore. It just gets cold and it's bitter. And then spring is kind of like all yucky because it's nice, but then you have all the melting snow and stuff. But fall is kind of a really nice transition to go from that hot weather into the colder weather. Plus, my birthday comes up in the fall, which is kind of nice.
In other words, this is a kind of a celebratory show. We'll celebrate Ben. We'll celebrate fall. We'll go to the fall colors. So it's very, very timely.
Yeah. And one of the things, though, you wanted to lead in before we started this was you had a winter prediction as we're transitioning from summer into winter. What is your winter prediction, Bill?
Yeah, well, first of all, Gord Restool from Doki's First Nation, many years ago, I learned so many Indigenous cultural teachings from Gord. Gord's been past now a decade, and he kind of handed it to me. And so all those, and I've been making predictions. And up until I was about 74%. Then last year I was spot on, We had that snow at Halloween, and it kind of stuck around. Then it didn't go anywhere. No more snow, melted. And of course, as we know, we had a kind of almost green winter. The snowmobilers weren't happy at this latitude. It wasn't very cold and had an early spring. And that was my prediction last year because of many, many things that Gord taught me about. And this year's, and I'll go over a few of them. The songbirds left way too early. The other day I was on Lake Nipissing off the Cranberry Trail kayaking, put in at Lavaz and down to Callender. The number of pockets of Canada geese rafted up, ready to go, way too early was an incredible number. I mean, we could talk about the wasps, how active they have been, and
when do the geese usually do that? Because just to put in context, we're like mid-September.
Gord would tell me that when they're low in the sky or stationary, they're and at this time they're already rafting up, but they're ready to go. And at night you can hear them already flying, so they're kind of in a bit of a hurry. So I expect winter to start a little earlier. And the beaver lodges, so for the temperature, not much mud on them, and their feed beds aren't very fulsome, so short winter. And so that leads us to believe that it will be an early spring. A carbon copy of what I'm saying of last year. So that's the winter prediction. Going to stick with it because of the natural signs, and there are other natural signs as well. But those are the biggies for now. And although we're enjoying this really, really warm weather everywhere across the north, sooner or later things will change. And that's what we're eventually going to talk about, the fall color change and where you should go and see those colors and actually do some fall hiking, camping, Sunday drives, etc.
Do you believe in the groundhog? Like the winter one where it's like,
yeah.
Do you do you say
Wyerton Willie and all the rest?
Yeah. Do you say that's BS, or do you say like that? Just I don't know if you've paid attention to that, but I mean,
for
statistically, because you've got this nailed down. Like we're looking at a groundhog. You're looking at a groundhog shadow, but here you are using not science, but you're using how nature is kind of moving.
I'm dealing with thousands of years of indigenous teachings that I've learned through Gord, and so the groundhog. I think I kind of will always look forward to that, to see. That and for the most part, although last year we didn't have the 6 weeks of additional winter. So there's all those kinds of things, and you have to be cognizant of what's happening outside. I mean, other things we had periods of rain this summer, but when you go to most of the rivers around and places that we visit, you can see the water, they're down. So that rain kind of I think a lot of it went right into the ground and didn't go into the watersheds. The Mattawa River is one example, because I see it almost every day, is that it's very low. So there's all kinds of signs to be aware of.
It's interesting you say that. So I have a cottage on Talon, and one thing with Talon is because of the chutes, they have they kind of a dam situation. So it's the water level is dependent on how much they let out or let in.
Yep.
And we were taking our dock out back. It was the second week of September. So when we're recording it, it was last weekend. It'll probably be a couple of weeks since then. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The water level was actually really high. Thankfully, I wasn't the one who had to get into the water in the hip waders. That was my brother-in-law. But he's a pretty tall guy. He's probably 6'3", 6'4". And if you know anything about Talon, it's a very deep lake and it's steep. There's not a lot of places to walk before you're not able to walk anymore. I don't know if there's a technical term for that, but the M&R, that's a water control dam on Lake Talon, and so I think they purposely keep that back for a bit. And it's the Mattawa River, right?
Yeah, sure, but below that, going down towards Mattawa, including Sammy de Champlain Provincial Park, is very, very shallow. I can tell you that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's a water management thing for people who have docks and camps and cottages and those kinds of things. So
Because my mom she goes every single day, and she'll talk about how, you know, the water's really high, really low. And I'll go, oh, cool. But when you actually like look at it from, sometimes it can cause issues because there are times where if it's too low, especially going into the winter and stuff, and it freezes versus too high, it can cause like shifting and stuff if you have like certain buildings that are close to the water, which is kind of like we have like a deck that's like built out over the water. It's the same thing. It's on these rocks, but if it's too high or too low, it's been a very interesting couple of years. And even winter, the interesting thing about the last few winters, it's been very mild. And I know like climate change is always going to be a big topic, has been for many years and will be for many years to come. And that's probably the most I've felt climate change has been the last few years where winters, we've had maybe one day of negative 25 here. You used to get weeks of negative 30. Do you think it's going to be mild again this winter?
yeah, well, that's the four parts of the winter prediction. You say, when's winter going to start? How cold it's going to be? How much snow? And of course, is it going to be an early spring? So as I said, the beavers tell me that it's not going to be very cold. And we're living with climate change. Now of course, we can mitigate climate change and we have to, but we're living with it.
It's kind of it's one of those things that's above both of us. Like there's not much we can do about it, but at the same time, you hope that the people who have the power over it do the right things.
Right. Still we're going to need some snow shovels.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to what we're here to talk about, which is best fall destinations, best fall colors. I've got a couple, but I want to start with you, Bill, because you want to take us a little not chronologically, but I guess geographically, kind of around whatever those fancy words are.
We're going to take a ride all over northeastern Ontario to be sure. And I have all my notes in front of me, and I just thought, I don't know where I'll start. But maybe I'll start, first of all, a couple things. By latitude, and of course we have the height of land and the height of land is where waters north of the height of land go towards the Arctic, James Bay, Hudson Bay, and the waters below end up going into the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence. And that oscillating line that goes across roughly parallels, and the line does oscillate, kind of where the hardwoods of the hard maples and sugar maples will kind of transition out and then, of course, into the boreal forest. Because below that, especially in the North Bay area and over towards Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie, along the shore up towards Wawa, we have the Great Lakes St. Lawrence forest of mixed deciduous trees. So henceforth, we have the colors. And then above that, we're transitioning into the boreal and different ecotones of aspen, poplar, and more conifers and more tamarack. So you'll get more yellows and browns as you head north. But the colors are just like that. I mean, in a late November day, I'm digressing a little bit, but a drive from North Bay to West Nipissing to Sturgeon Falls along what's called the Sturgeon Stretch, and you see that bright yellow ochre color of tamaracks, and that's just startling. So anyway, I thought I'd start in the
super quick, Bill.
Yeah.
Just because this popped into my head, do different trees, and I know obviously like when you get to the certain trees, they don't change color. This is taking me way back into science class. I'm trying to remember all the terms for it.
Yeah.
Deciduous is the trees that don't change color, right?
No, coniferous.
Coniferous.
Yeah. They're called evergreens.
Evergreens. Yeah, I knew that. Okay. But if you go into like the poplars and maples and like all of these that actually are those the
deciduous trees.
Deciduous trees, yes.
Yeah. And some are more hardy than others and live by latitude because of growing conditions. So
but they have different color. Like are the leaves different colors and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. The hardwoods and the sugar maples, you'll get the different colors of red and orange and those kinds of things. And of course, it's all to do with it's shutting down and sunlight, cool temperatures, and again, that's why the colors, the carotids change and off and on it goes. And so, but that's why we have the beautiful fall season, and that's why people think, wow, we have 4 distinctive seasons, and so that's why it's good to get out there. I mean, just in the North Bay area alone, the escarpment when it changes color is wow. You look up at that and say that's just Beautiful. But again, I thought it started in the northwest of, between Cochrane and Hearst, including Kapuskasing, along that Highway 11 north. You're going to be in the Boreal, so you'll see the contrasting yellow brown with the green conifers, the evergreens, and but the jack pine and black spruce. And so I would go to Remy Bernal Provincial Park. Moonbeam, Kapuskasing Way, that would be a destination. And then, of course, along the way, you could stop at Moonbeam and get your selfie with the spaceship, along with the polar bear in Cochrane and all the others that exist in most communities. And so by latitude, you're going to have that with the aspen poplar trees, the yellow, the browns, and then if we move a little further to the south, but we'll stay over in that northeastern corner, in Kirkle Lake. A trip out to Esker Lakes Provincial Park, headed towards Quebec. And again, if you have more time, theme-wise, continue on that road, Highway 66, is it? I'm going to get that wrong, but towards Virginia Town and Larder Lake, and then you might climb Mount Chamonix, which is right on the Ontario-Quebec border. That would be a beautiful thing to look down in the colors, because you have to do the ascent on top of this bulbous type of hill. It's called the Roche Montagnais. And anyway, that's over in that corner. In Timmins, you've got Kettle Lakes Provincial Park. In Timmins alone, you've got just to the west of Timmins, you've got Nikki's Trail, which is a story in itself about a person where the community, she died of cancer, and they put this beautiful trail in for her, named after her. Also in Timmins, you've got High Falls, which is part of the Matagami Conservation Authority. That's a great spot to go. I don't want to leave out Chapleau, because if you're in that area, you want to go into the Chapleau Game Preserve, and you can drive on the Backroads actually to Missinaibi Provincial Park. And, if you go down way over towards the road, Highway 101 towards Wawa, along there, there's lots of back roads there. And of course, if you're in Wawa, you now all of a sudden you're on Lake Superior. And if we were headed south now, you'd be into Lake Superior Provincial Park. You've got all those trails, not only on the Highway 17 corridor, but some and from Wawa working south towards Sault Ste. Marie, you've got all those trails to look at. You could stop easy places like Old Woman Bay, the Agua campground itself, and then further south. I want to highlight, just as a mention, at Pancake Bay Provincial Park. Don't forget there's a trail called the Lookout Trail.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, the Lookout Trail, because that you climb up there and you've got a steel scaffold kind of staircase up to a viewing area, and you can look out, and there's the story about the Edmunds Fitzgerald, which it's the storm in November, and Gordon Lightfoot saw. I think
that was our first episode, I believe.
Oh,
no, maybe second episode.
Maybe it was. You have a better.
No, Barocco was.
Yeah, Bill Barocco was.
I have a better memory, but not for maps. Like you, I don't understand how you do it, because I feel like you just have this mental map.
I do,
because dude, I can barely remember what highways are out of North Bay.
Every time I come in the studio, I just unfold the paper map. It's not here on the table. It's just unfolded. But so as we get towards Sault Ste. Marie along that coastline, we've got the Hiawatha Trails. I think it's the 6th line. You go out to Gross Cap in Sault Ste. Marie, and here's another tip: Robertson's Cliffs, which is it's a trail system, part of the Voyager Trail Network. You want to do that, a viewing spot, beautiful blanket of color in front of you. And then as we head more east, the turnoff, you can take the road at Thessalon that goes up to Chapleau, or a little further along Elliott Lake. Elliott Lake is kind of like the mecca of trails in northeastern Ontario. So many trails, including Mississauga Provincial Park. Highly recommend the Helen Bar Trail. Great big glacial erratic on that trail, but that's another place to go. But lots of trails believe it or not, in the Elliott Lake Trail. But we can't forget the turnoff, Highway 6 to Manitoulin Island, the Cup and Saucer Trail, and just Sunday drives all over Manitoulin Island, a part of the, Niagara Escarpment, a whole different part of Ontario. And so then, lo and behold, we've got all the trails and rainbow routes around Sudbury. Go up Highway 144 in the north end, Windy Lake Provincial Park, and Onaping Falls, where A.Y. Jackson painted. You take that highway all the way up to Timmins, and of course that Highway 144, you'll see that transition out of the hardwoods into the boreal forest, and that's a nice drive. You could turn off both ways. You can go left or west towards Chapleau and the Sultan and Dusty Road, or east towards Elk Lake and find yourself over in the little clay belt of Timiskaming Shores, Cobalt, New Liskeard, Haileybury, and everything through there. If we're coming south, and I guess I should pause and talk about some of these places, but of course we've got Cap Kigawan with waterfalls there in Englehart, Temagami, the Red Squirrel Road, but an easy thing to do for people anywhere along that Highway 11 North corridor is to stop at the Temagami Fire Tower, and that'll give you an extra viewing spot. Martin River Provincial Park, go out there and give a hug to probably the second or third largest white pine tree in the province on one of their trails. And if some of the parks have closed down after Thanksgiving, it's a nice walk, or take your bike and walk in that. But that's why, and we've talked a little bit about that the benefit of having a seasonal or yearly park pass for Ontario parks, that you can go into these parks and utilize. And I'm really big on all the trail systems that we have in our provincial parks because it provides good access. And we're talking about the fall colors. We should do that. Now, as we get closer to North Bay and all around the place, Restua Provincial Park, there's the trail out to the Lookout where the fire tower is still there but not serviceable. And that's a lot of oak trees there, in particular overlooking Stormy Lake. A little further south, we've got Mikisew. And of course, the beauty about North Bay and Northern Ontario, we've got there's only two other places in Canada. We have two Trans-Canada highways that start in North Bay, Highway 11 North, that curves all the way up around from Cochrane to Kapuskasing and Hearst and beyond to Nipigon, and the one that goes from North Bay west through West Nipissing, Sudbury, and winds its way through all those towns along the north shore of Lake Huron and Lake Thessalon, and we end up in Sioux, and then going north and through Wawa, White River, which I was just at the other day. I was on that train from Sudbury to White River. Never been on it before, and we're going to talk about that in another episode. Highly recommend it. And then beyond White River, we've got places like Marathon, Terrace Bay, Rossport, and lo and behold, we end up where the Highway 11 and 17 join. But all those areas and the back roads that join them, we talked a bit about logging roads in the past, that you can drive these back roads, logging roads that connect those two Trans-Canada highways, and you will see all these trees and all these colorful places. There's no shortage of places to see, and I thought I'd be almost remiss. Of course, we'll eventually get back to Samuel de Champlain Provincial Park to the east. But in North Bay alone, as we've all grown up to know, Descheny Falls and the Canadore Trails is just two examples. Never mind the Cranberry Trail in Calgary. I mean, there's places to go, and I could every one of those places and trails that I've been on, I could probably talk about something that's outstanding, whether we get out of our car or not. But I forgot the Devil's Lookout in Devil's Rock in North Cobalt. So yeah, there's and that beauty of that little clay belt moving to the Great Clay Belt a little further north, and I'm just rambling on here about all these places, but we're so blessed with this vast and magnificent land, which I've often mentioned in the past, and for the fall colors. We could live or we could go to any one of these communities and have a good time and have a really pleasurable experience by looking at the fall colors.
Well, Bill, we're going to take a quick break from our fall destinations to tell you about a great destination for your next night out on the town. One of today's sponsors is Casey's. So this weekend, make your way to Casey's Restaurant in North Bay for an unforgettable get-together. Bill, you can only choose one thing off the item. What's the thing?
Well, Ben, first of all, Casey's is probably one of the longest-standing restaurants in North Bay. There have been lots of traditional restaurants in North Bay that have come and gone and closed down, especially in the Main Street area, and people will know what I'm talking about. But Casey's has been around for a long, long time. It's positioned correctly at the big turn north and west and east and all that kind of thing. I've always liked the French onion soup there, which is hard to make, and I don't think I've ever made it because I always order things off the menu that I've never made before, like French onion soup, which is great there, and a club o sandwich. And the other thing I was thinking about, I really like their quesadillas there on the menu. So, in probably 3 seasons out at the patio for the bar, especially on Fridays at the end of the week. That's a great social spot. So Casey's is really part of our community culture.
Well, we were talking about the quesadillas a little bit before off air. Quesadillas, especially Santa Fe chicken quesadillas, are fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, dive into our delicious appetizers and enjoy the best drafts in town at the bar and the patio as we are getting kind of transitioning into the winter time, which, Bill, you said it's going to be an early winter?
It's going to be an early winter. We can always stop there for some hot chocolate. I'm getting hungry just thinking about all the things at Casey's.
Well, it's the perfect spot to unwind, catch up with friends, and savor great flavors. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Casey's for a weekend filled with good food, great drinks, and even better company. And it's super interesting because you were talking about how lucky we are because I think with the way that COVID and the housing market and everything has started to push a lot of people further and further north, especially since COVID, as people were working from home more. And one of the nice things that I think is people are realizing like how close they are. Because before, if you were in Toronto, you would think of Muskoka as it's kind of like the fancy rich person way of going to the lake. Whereas here, even just owning a cottage or owning a trailer or being able to just go out to Deschênes Falls, like it's not an uncommon thing here especially if if you inherited that property, it's not a crazy thing to have a cottage, or it's not a crazy thing to have an area you can go and be out in nature and stuff. And I think it's so interesting that we can literally just go up the hill to Canadore and you have all of these places right there.
Well, the old knock about, have you been north of Highway 7 or Barrie? And of course you get into Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, or Huntsville and the Highway 60 corridor. But again, you've got the Muskokas and then the Halliburton and the Kawarthas, all that, where this massive exodus of people from the GT area going up. And then I think sometimes we're blessed that come Huntsville, you have to drive another hour and a bit, and then you're at that latitude of that imaginary line of the French River, Mattawa River, North Bay that comes across, and that's how North Bay got its name, the gateway to the north. And of course, we're called the Near North. Now, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Highway 60 corridor in Algonquin Park, because in the North Bay area, we can go to the east on Highway 17, and there's the road to Chios, that entry, Bissett Creek, Clocks Road, a little further down or along Deux Rivières. We've got that side, and on the southern corridor on Highway 11, we've got access points at Kearney, South River, Round Lake, and of course we can see the colors from that. And then of course, we'll say at the southernmost part, you've got the Highway 60 corridor that goes from west to east, from Huntsville all the way across to the logging exhibit on the far side eastern part of the park, and that's world renowned for the colors. And of course, people look at the color change, and is it 25%, 50%, and that's how people plan their trips to go out and see the peak of the color on a sunshiny day, plus or minus around Thanksgiving. This year, I don't know. It seemed the color change. That's another thing. I think the color change is a little sooner this year as well.
Yeah, so the thing with the Highway 60 is my dad's family side of the family is from Bancroft. So if you don't know where Bancroft is, it's by Cache Bay. If you have no idea where Cache Bay is, it's essentially between North Bay and Ottawa.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go through Algonquin Park, but it's a much more efficient way of going. And so when we would go out there to visit, which was usually once a year, we would have like family reunions. We would always go through the park. And this is going to date me a little bit as I'm turning 30, right? I remember back in the day, am I allowed to use that phrase?
Yeah, for sure.
Back in the day, you used to have to actually pay to go through the park, just to drive through, very similar to like Highway 407. Now I think they changed it to where you can drive through, but you can't, if you stop or if you go into the park, you have to pay for for the park
Yeah,
pass.
there are meters, or use your seasonal pass.
But if you ever want to see just trees, just a row of trees, and because the Algonquin Park, it's very hilly. Like there's a lot of very steep and hills, and you really are, when you get to the top of those, you can really see out and see just this vista of these. And I swear they're probably the most vibrant yellow and colors that you'll see. I always thought that was like really interesting. It's really cool to go there in the summer, but to go there in the fall is one of the, especially now that it's free, it's one of the coolest drives that you'll do. But the craziest thing I will ever see in the park, and you're somebody who's photographed animals quite a bit. We've talked about, you photographing wolves and the eagles and all that stuff. One of the things that always made me really laugh is you would see people who I'm assuming are tourists, because there's a lot of moose in Algonquin Park, like a lot. You will see them because it's very marsh and swamp kind of land. And you'd always see the person who would go out and they'd be standing like 5 feet away from a moose with their giant, very long focal camera lens. I can't remember. It's
long lens.
Yeah, it's escaping me the name. And they would be like 5 feet away, and I would just look at them and be like, that is not a good place to be near a moose, because those things are quick.
Well, we could talk about photography, but our cell phones are so powerful now with zoom lenses and multiple lenses. But and we can do that. We don't need the tripods. We don't need the long lenses. But of course, when you do that snap, other than on the small screen of your cell phone or the up to the iPad or laptop, other than that, you can't blow them up because they get pixelated, so to speak. So yeah, the avid you can tell a serious photographer by the equipment, the tripod, and beyond the selfie stick and the cell phone. But so Algonquin Park is another place to go. And when we think about it, we've often called North Bay the canoe mecca of the world, because we can go in all directions. We can go south to Algonquin Park. We can go west to Killarney, and I want to mention the Crack Trail there in a moment. And of course, east, we're on the Mattawa River, and north we've got Temagami and beyond, all the rivers that go northward. But yeah, I almost forgot the Crack Trail in Killarney, which will be besieged by people. I can remember back in the day when
how far back in the day was this?
Yeah, not that long, like more than a decade.
Okay.
I remember the Northern Ontario Travel did, I think, 12 or 14 Backroads Bill commercials where we do these mini vignettes in winter, all 4 seasons, and they still exist. Just Google Backroads Bill Northern Ontario Travel. And the Crack is one when I remember when there was only a trail, no parking lot, and then they made a parking lot with the meters where you have to pay. And now you almost have to, people tell me that you can't even get in the parking lot and they close it down because there's so many people do the Crack Trail. Now, the Crack Trail takes you up, and of course, there's the big hiking trail in Killarney Provincial Park, and there's so you can access those trails, but because it's a shorter trail and you go up and back, that's the lure of it. And of course, you've got those populations from Sudbury, and of course, not so far to the south and along Britt and beyond, all those cottagers coming up, and they want to go to the Crack Trail. So Killarney is another beautiful area to see the Lacoche Mountains, because there you've got right over to Manitoulin and taking Highway 6 south of Espanola. There you've got the contrasting white of the Lacoche Mountains, the quartzite, with all those vibrant colors. So, wow. And then, of course, think about the roads that go across over to the Highway 11 corridor. I mean, I'm blathering on about all the places you can go, but there's no shortage to get out and go for a Sunday drive or go for a hike on one of these provincial park trails or trails that exist in many, many communities, and to see the fall color change. And I think it's developed into another fall color tours is another part of tourism where people will actually do that. I mean, as a tourist, we're considered a tourist every time you leave your hometown and go and visit. So, because again, you're providing an impact in someone else's community, whether you stop to eat, get gas, buy trinkets, and of course a lot of studio tours in the fall. You've got the harvesting of fall vegetables and market kind of things, and so it's I think certainly in Northern Ontario and Northeastern Ontario, you have all these opportunities to get out there in the backroads.
So the funny thing when you're talking about the Crack Trail and how it's changed over the years, it just reminded me, going back to the Bancroft story, is when I was young, this would have been like the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, we would go there. When we would go there, there was like not a lot of stuff in there. It was a pretty small town. And it's gotten much bigger over the years. And we were there probably about 10 years ago. And it was funny because we're trying to link up with my sister, who is like, her family was coming in from a different way, and we're like, hey, we're at the Tim Hortons. They now have 2 Tim Hortons. It was why I was like, oh, they were at the other Tim Hortons on the other side. I'm just saying, Bancroft had a big glow up because it's a little bit more than just a Dairy Queen down the street now with one street light.
Yeah, well, Bancroft and it's a little bit out of the way when you look at where it is, but with retirees or people flipping their properties in places in Southern Ontario and the GTA, making some money coming back. That's why they're moving up into places, Bancroft and beyond. Even we've seen that in places as far away as Elliott Lake, retirement communities, Manitouwadge, North Bay, and on it goes. And so when there was a mass exodus of students and young people and people that worked at many mines and mills and following their children further south, and then there was and no jobs. Now a lot of people that have retired in certain occupations, now there's more younger people and other families coming back up here, so they starting to appreciate all that natural beauty and all these kinds of natural resources we have with snowmobile trails, ATV trails, hiking trails, water everywhere. And again, we'll talk about, if you want to see water, you must go on that Bud car from Sudbury to White River. It's like you could close your eyes, but when you open them, there'll be water there again, whether it's a creek, river, lake, pond, wetland, small, large, in between. I was mesmerized by it. I've been on all the other trains, the Little Bear train, the Polar Bear Express, the train into the Agawa, and of course the train that used to go up to Hearst, which no longer runs the entire distance. So there's that's another Backroads Bill episode, but we're talking about the fall colors. So there is just so many opportunities, and then things are running, through my mind of all the places you can go and lay down in the leaves or look out and look at these magnificent vistas or views, or just be among. And there's nothing better than shuffling along when some of the leaves have come. Shuffling your feet in those leaves. There's something that's one of those distinctive kind of sounds. It's like the smell of French fries and salt and vinegar at a chip stand, but no, it's the shuffling of the leaves and many other sounds that we hear that are ingrained in our mind just from childhood all the way through. And that's why I think fall is one of those seasons that we really get attached to. And it's funny too, a lot of people really, really like the fall because of that the transitions that occur back to school, or the Freedom 55 crew that you can now enjoy the camping, because fall camping is spectacular.
It feels more like the start of a year than January does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think all of us, because one of the common denominators we have is our school childhood. So September is, I think, from a calendar perspective, that is the beginning of the school year, and of course summer we've learned to go on vacation. So yeah, no, it's not January. January is a calendar thing, and we kind of make those veiled thoughts to ourselves that we're going to make change, but we never really do. I guess it's funny too, because when you're talking about the leaves and like laying in the leaves and stuff and the rustle, and you're doing it in a very you're very happy about it. There's people out there who are like, I hate leaves because I have to rake them and I have to take care of them. And and I'm like, I was just thinking about them. I'm like,
It's kind of like as you become adult, it's like the wintertime. I like the wintertime, but owning a car in the wintertime and having to shovel and do all the adult things.
Well, those are the extremes of having to shovel snow or a snowblower, and so, as opposed to making a snowman or playing in the snow, making a fort. And again, the where they're taking the leaves out of the rain gutters and the eaves trough, as opposed to shuffling along a trail and enjoying all the sounds of that. And I love the fall too, because it's also like the early spring, but when the leaves start to fall from the deciduous trees, Ben, conifers have the
not coniferous.
Needles, the only
deciduous.
one that sheds its coat is the tamarack, the larch, is that you can see so much more out into the forest too. So you see things you haven't seen before, and that's a real thrill too. But again, it's that color, I think, that excites our minds, because it is like no other time of the year.
Well, as we wrap up, there's one question that you need to answer.
Wow.
It is the favorite. The favorite place.
Question.
My favorite place in fall, at least if you want to look at it from a visual perspective, is still going to be Algonquin Park.
Yes.
Okay. But I do but going through some of the places in North Bay, like Descheny Falls, Cranberry Trail, etc., great option. But if you had to choose one place in your vast knowledge and experience you've had in Ontario, what is it?
I've just named all my favorite places.
No.
Over the place.
No, you got to give me
They're all my
an
favorites. Or, of course, the best answer in a lot of the questions like that, it's the next one. You know that I haven't been on before. Again, I saw some color change the other day from being on that Bud car from Sudbury to White River. But I'm processing right now.
Give me a top three, because I know you're not.
Yeah. It's hard to pin me down to one, but because I kind of live and work in Samuel D. Champlain Provincial Park, I would encourage people to take, and it's very doable, the Red Pine Trail, because that's only an hour and a half. You could do the nature trail and the trail that goes along the river, the longer trail. So that's one. And if because this emanates out of North Bay, I guess it's the. I think I might say there's so many, and I guess not to be antisocial. So stay away from the Canada trails in Descheny Falls, and maybe go over towards the Fred Gunter Trail over on the North Shore to do that. And then in Northern Ontario, if I had to go and stay with the hardwoods, I did not mention Robertson's Cliffs near Sault Ste. Marie. And if I did, I just am there right now, standing at the top, overlooking Lake Superior with a lot of land in front of me. But Robertson's Cliff is just a little to the west of Sault Ste. Marie, part of the Voyageur Trail Network. I did mention that because I was talking, and so is the Cup and Saucer. But I think that would be a destination. And now I was going to start rambling off about the others, but then honorable mention to the Fire Tower Trail at Resto Provincial Park overlooking Stormy Lake. That's also a favorite because it's a great snowshoe destination in the summer. So anytime you can get that kind of contrast. We didn't even mention the Eau Claire Gorge.
Okay, you get one
enough.
more. You get one more, or else we'll be here all day.
Yeah. So, the other one was, and again, we were talking about Killarney Silver Peak, and you get out on top of that, and you have a 360-degree view. So that's there's a whole host of them, and we've covered so many. And of course, we'd like to hear from the viewers and listeners on the Backroadsville podcast about, and they can contact us and tell us about things and correct us as well if we've missed something or said something incorrectly. But yeah, the fall colors, and we need to get out of the studio here, Ben, and go for a walk in the woods. It's that time of the year.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, Bill, another episode has gone by so quick.
Well, it's been a year. We're celebrating 52 episodes, and we're looking
more
forward.
Than that. I think we're at 55 or 56.
Yeah, well, so there you go. And I mean, when you told me that, I thought I kind of thought you were a little crazy, but no, and you are a little bit, but no, that's lots to look forward to, and we'll do a lot more. And happy trails.
Well, we did it. 1 full year of the Backroads Bill podcast. It's hard to believe because it really has flown by. We've had some amazing guests on, as Bill said earlier, like the Adam Schultz and the Hap Wilsons. And of course, the guest we just had on, the Corey Dingles with the Norville Morrisseau estate. We've had so many, and there's way too many to just talk about here, but we've been so thankful for the amount of guests that we've been able to have on. And it really just shows you that a lot of times you can just reach out to people and they will be just happy to talk about whatever they're passionate about, which is really cool. So if you're somebody who has a podcast or you have anything where you want to talk to people, I highly encourage just reaching out, because you never know. A lot of times people are very gracious with their time, no matter how big or famous you think they are. We haven't really had any bad experiences trying to get people on. People have been very gracious, so we're very thankful for that. And it is confirmed now. We talked about Sasquatch Sam having an episode on that with the sculptor. It is officially confirmed. We will have him on next Wednesday. So that should be a super fun chat. And I just imagine how fun it would be to actually sculpt an 8-foot statue. But what I really want to know is the adventure of Bill bringing that thing back on a trailer halfway across the province. I think that'll be really cool. So if you enjoyed today's episode and want more of the Backroads Bill podcast, you can find us on all of your favorite podcast players. The video version is available on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel. And of course, we're always available at NorthBayEcho.ca, where we have a lot of other great local podcasts. Lisa, actually yesterday on To North Bay with Love, just talked with Debbie Marson, who runs the food bank here in North Bay, and brought up a crazy stat. 1 million visits to food banks in this past year by Ontarians. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's felt the crunch of the grocery bill, and food banks have become a big necessity for a lot of people and a big lifeline for a lot of people. So Debbie's going to go through a lot of the stuff of why people are needing help. You shouldn't be ashamed to need help, but also the food bank itself needs help and how they're kind of trying to manage everything with the uptick in people they need to help. We also have some other great shows. Last week, we launched the Echo Sportscast, which is going to be a rundown of varsity club and rec sports happening in the North Bay area. We'll have highlights, scores, interviews. That one comes out every Friday morning, again, NorthBayEcho.ca, as well as on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel and all your favorite podcast players. So that just about does it for us here this week. Join us again next week when we are going to be talking about Sasquatch Sam.